Mr. Balaji Raghunathan, Vice President Technology and Solution Digital Experience from 𝗖𝗐 Infotech. The panel members, 𝗕𝗲𝗏, Senior Director Digital Infra from Harman Connected Services, Natarajan Chellappan from Wipro Limited. He is the Head of AMS Delivery and Transformation. Santanu Patro, General Manager Global Head and Cloud Infrastructure Advisory and Consulting from Wipro Limited. Ashok Kumar C, Deputy General Manager Business Development from Tata Communications. Naresh Choudhary, Vice President from Infosys Limited. Please invite them all with a big round of applause, please.
So, today we'll just look at digital transformation as a whole, and we'll see, what is the secret sauce for an agile, resilient enterprise. So we have seen about 70% of digital transformations fail, right? Or basically, when we say fail, it is more about not measuring up to the business value realization benefits which was actually projected, right? So the business value realization is an issue. So one of the key reasons for that is, while people spend a lot on coming up with the latest data projects or the AI projects or the customer experience projects, the adoption is very weak. So there are a lot of challenges when it comes to adoption. So Naresh, I just wanted to check, what has been your experience when it comes to challenges with digital adoption?
Thank you, Balaji. And I think before I start, I want to say that there is clearly more wisdom on the other side of the room than this side, because I know some of you as colleagues and friends, right? So what I think this panel is going to do is, perhaps reflect on some things that we have learned from our experience, and I'm going to start on that. So clearly, from my experience working with customers, looking at Infosys' own journey of the live enterprise, first and foremost, according to me, is just lack of vision and clarity. I think a lot of times these start as creating a new shiny app, something which is perhaps a technology initiative, and transformations, digital transformations more so, are not about creating a shiny app, not about a tech initiative. Somebody in the tech side is very passionate about AI or cloud or something else. It's not clearly about that, right? So I think first and foremost is that, who sets the vision, who sets the direction and the charter for what this is about. Second, not having an understanding of the larger objective that your customers are going to benefit from. And that again goes back to the understanding of your customer, micro segments, right? What are your customers clearly looking for? Third, how much legacy are you carrying? If your legacy is so huge, right, and old, that it's actually going to drag you down, then your ability to actually drive transformation is going to become a clear barrier in terms of that legacy. Fourth, a culture of experimentation, because this is not going to be a one-shot big bang thing. It is going to be a series of incremental innovations, experiments. Some of them will fail. Is there a culture of accepting failures and looking at failure as not failure but learning? That clearly is a big challenge, right? A lot of companies face. And finally, sometimes security, right? Just given the recent times that we have seen, that can become a big impediment, right? How well architected, etc., are your systems from a security side. So I think clearly those are the big challenges that I see in terms of barriers.
Yeah, well put, Naresh. So basically, what you have told is that it should not start with technology. It should start with business vision. What you want to achieve out of digital transformation, and then you went on to also list that it should not be just an app. An app is not a digital transformation. Then you also talked about fail fast, right? So the culture of absorbing failures and failing fast. That's all well put. So Ashok, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what are the digital adoption failures.
Sure, thanks. Hi everyone. So it's going to be tough to follow what after Naresh has spoken. So um, it kind of makes me wonder whether I have got my thing right or wrong. Anyway, here goes. What I would be probably sharing with you all would be the kind of experience and what we have gone through, what we have seen, how the other organizations have implemented, how they have taken out their digital, how that digital transformation was. So if you permit me, I would, mark this pandemic as a center point, and I would say there's one pre-COVID era, and then there is this current phase. So the pre-COVID era was a place where the adoption of newer technology, all these were a challenge. It was not taken into that in the way that we would have all have liked. But yes, once the pandemic set in, there was an immense pressure on these enterprises to either adapt, change, or be left behind. So we saw that people have started implementing. So that was a major shift. The rate at which they implemented was mind-boggling. That was the need of the hour. So from a telecom provider standpoint, if I were to say what we were looking at, our major voice revenues used to come from say the on-prem equipment, on-prem solutions, which were like PRIs or the standard SIP channels which were there. Now nobody was going into the offices, everything was being done from home and stuff like that. So how do I do this? So we have migrated onto cloud. We did have our solution on cloud, so that was promoted. We had a lot of people coming onto our cloud-based solutions. So we transformed their on-prem equipment onto our cloud platform, and that's how we've seen that most of those guys who the enterprises, especially when the pandemic prolonged, there was a large-scale rush from the SME segments onto such solutions. So while for them it was easy because their ask was limited in terms of a little integration which we could do with some kind of a customization modification. So we were able to do that. So they were able to regularize their the telecom requirements at least to the completely near normal, slightly better in terms of. And this is the same thing that we extended to the contact center divisions also. So we are a witness to all those growths, what has happened. But when it came to the large enterprises, yes, there was a little hesitation in terms of maybe the security aspect of it, or maybe the how they. But right now, what I see is a major shift there, and people are shifting onto the digital adoption. So it took us all a pandemic, basically, to say that whatever challenges that we were thinking, that's not a challenge. It can be easily overcome. And be it pre-COVID or the current phase, the challenge that still remains is the cost of change. That I think will never change. Yeah, that's.
Thank you, Ashok. So basically, one of the points what you picked up was very similar to what Naresh mentioned. So basically, the large organizations have a lot of legacy, and legacy is basically one constraint. While when you talked about SMEs, you felt that the adoption was much faster. Also, the other thing what you felt is necessity is the mother of invention. So you have actually the pre-COVID era and then the post-COVID era. And the post-COVID era, because it was necessary to for people to actually avoid contact, right? So that's when the actual digital adoption started. So that were, I think those were very good points. Coming to you now, Santanu, do you have any secret sauce framework, which will help, in sort of implementing digital strategy successfully? What are the steps actually you see?
See, from my experience, right, what we have done for customers, if you look at it, right, the first of all, it starts with how much you have cloudified your infrastructure. That's where you start expanding your technology capabilities to make your digital success, the digital plan. But all of it, as my peers have said out here, right, the first thing is if you do not have the right strategy in place, it does not help you to make a right plan. If you don't have the right plan, you cannot have the right budget. If you don't have the right, after that, you don't have the right visibility into the risks that might come in, which will help you to list out the predictable risks and a framework to ensure that if any unpredictable risk comes in, how can you handle that? On last is once it is done in terms of the budgets. So once everything is in place, you need to again have the right budget in place. And as my friend said here, right, some of the policies that we see, or some of the companies that we have seen, they fail and it's done. They don't again come back. Okay, it's a failure, leave it, let's plan something else. They don't even go and try to fix that for why they have failed, right? One of the cultural change he spoke about is adopting or welcoming failures, right, as a way of learning. You have failed, that means you have graduated better, right? You have graduated to understand how you can make it better. So I believe the process aspect of it, the technology that we are talking about, and the people are the right ingredients when we say you need to have a right success for the digital plan.
Thank you, Santanu. So basically what you mentioned is any transformation, any digital strategy should revolve around cloud. So that's the stepping stone. And on top of it, you need to build your strategy, and your strategy needs to take care of all the risks. It could be cybersecurity risks or whatever risks. And then you also have to look at the process transformation aspect. That's when your digital strategy can be taken into account.
Obviously, see, if you do not have a process transformation, people are still ending up and expecting the legacy way of working.
Yeah.
So the cultural change needs to be done it should be top down and bottoms up, and also left to right and right to left to ensure that everyone is well aware of that. So anywhere we go and do this digital transformations and all, we also ensure that we factor something called as OCM, organization change management aspect of it, to ensure that people are well aligned. It might be training, it might be sending notifications, it means sending mailers, whatever it might be. People should be educated on the change that has happened and what changes for them.
So basically the adoption strategy is a core part of your digital strategy.
Right.
Thank you. That was great insight, Shantanu. So coming to you, Natarajan, what is your framework? How is it different from what Shantanu mentioned based on your experience?
Okay. Thank you, Balaji. But before that, I would like to reintroduce myself, because the one which is shown over here, it's not the right designation. I'm a global architect in Wipro, taking care of IBM solutions and promoting IBM solutions within Wipro and to the customers. So that's the role I carry, and primarily an infrastructure person. Okay, so I agree and to some extent on what Shantanu had said, and I was also part of consulting, so I know very well what he's saying. But one of the things which I would like to highlight core is more than cloudification. One should think from the perspective of whether the cloudification is the first element to take care. Okay, I would say there are hybrid clouds, right? You can start with your on-premises system. You can go with the element of cloud and see what is cost advantages, to take care from the first instance standpoint. And the second part is, as you said, maybe the next question will cover in detail from a security standpoint. I will explain. So the security layer across the infrastructure, the application level, the middleware layer, integration, they're all the components that constitute from a legacy modernization standpoint what could be the right kind of framework that you can arrive at. Okay, we can get into the details of the technology, but before we start at the highest level, an enterprise level view for an architect is very, very critical to decide how I'm going to begin my conversation with a GSI or with a solution vendor, whoever is going to provide. And that will take care of the first part, how I'm going to do the legacy modernization, right? That's the starting point. And then the application is the actual driving factor for deciding what kind of platform I need to choose for today and for next 5 years or 10 years from now, right? So some of these aspects, but I can go on, but in the interest of time, I'll stop here.
Thank you, Natarajan. So basically, what you mentioned is, technology transformation is basically the core of digital transformation, and it's better to have a proper architecture, having a cross-cutting layers. It could be infrastructure, and top of it application, and on top of it, data, and then across it basically security. So that's basically what you say is core of your framework.
Absolutely. See, we need to take care of the future from the perspective of security on all layers. The bottommost layer, at the operating system level, at the integration layer, at the application level, all layers. Today, security is a very, very critical component. We need to prevent the organization from ransomware attacks. That takes all the money, effort, time of the enterprise today, right? It's very, very critically impacting the organization's business because of the ransomware attacks. So we need to take care of storage, we need to take care of network, we need to take care of all the infrastructure and all the layers of the enterprise from a security standpoint. So that is very, very important critical factor.
Thank you, Natarajan.
Thank you.
Praveen, when it comes to digital investments, right? So people talk about nowadays Web3, right? That is the first, latest and greatest. But yeah, before that, you should also have cloud and AI and ML and say even mobility, all these, right? So how do you actually see the investments when it comes to digital transformation, especially when it comes to an agile and resilient enterprise? Where do you see the investments go in?
Okay, so let me give a little kind of 360-degree view. So we looked at Naresh talking about vision, and then the legacy that you know, and then where you want to go. So now with that, and then Ashok talked about how do I extend that to the end customer, the touch points, right? So then we also looked at how we secure the environment and what is the framework that I'm looking at, right? So now once you have all these things, how do I protect the investment? Right? So now, or like where do I invest? So technology is getting complex. It is more going towards cloud, and most of the applications are SaaS applications today. And then that's what is enabling you to move faster on your transformation journey, right? So now, when things go to cloud, how do you protect your investment? So now, can traditional security measures are good enough with ever-changing threat vector? We are protecting our perimeters and then ensuring that the traditional way, right? So selectively allow some traffic to come in and then selectively allow traffic to go out. Is that enough? So I don't think it is enough. Okay, so you have to have the supporting framework, right? So now you should have something like enterprise risk management. Okay, so now what if some of my when I did the digitization of my infrastructure, it is now become boundaryless, right? So now it's gone beyond the boundary that we used to protect. And then when it is boundaryless, how do I protect my overall IP, the brand value, etc.? So now, when that becomes the important, so one is enterprise risk management. Under that, you should have how do I protect my digital assets, legal protection, infrastructure security put together. So now with that, I think we'll be able to, if you don't have that structure, it's very difficult to protect or act on any kind of incident which is leading to the data theft, data leakage, etc. So investment protection is predominantly from the security perspective is very, very important.
So thank you, Praveen. So basically what you mentioned is that apart from cloud, AI and ML, probably these are all table stakes for digital transformation. Your key investment should go into threat modeling and risk protection, and for that you also may need a kind of governance model and an operating model. That's where your enterprise risk management comes into picture. So essentially, protecting yourself from whatever threats come in is key to digital transformation success.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That was very interesting. Now, coming back to you, Natarajan, from a cyber security perspective, where do you see customers invest on, and what do you think is basically key to cyber security?
Okay, it's a very vast subject and also kind of a dry subject and subject that is close to my heart. First, a lot of seniors in the organization, from various enterprises are here. My question is, even this question is also to myself, do I like discipline in the organization, right? If you all say yes, then the leadership at the highest level also must support to achieve the discipline in the organization, which revolves around three factors: people, processes, and tools, right? Tools, there are plenty of tools available, whether it is cloud native or on-premises system or multiple systems that we talk about with multiple varieties of operating system. Tools are very much available. Now, the thing is, the tools are deployed, but whether it is working to the potential, no. Actually, in many enterprises, it is not working to its potential. Whether there is a processes to govern, yes, there are processes designed. It is available, very much available. Everybody will show the processes. But whether it is working as per the processes, whether the tool deployment is working as per processes and gives you the right results, definitely it is a subject of question. Maybe it is giving, maybe it is not, but not to the fullest extent. And people, collaboration within the organization, right? When it comes to deployment of security and to see the effectiveness of its working, there are 4 teams that has to join, together and collaborate and work in the entire governance in the system. One is the service management process that integrates all, and then the risk management system, the cyber security system, tools and resources, and infrastructure. All these 4 resources from each team has to work together. Only then the cyber security with all its integration, assuming all the integration has happened in all the areas, the organization will be able to achieve. This is my first experience, and I have the framework very clearly defined end-to-end, including the processes and tools. I can share it with you. Okay, you can see that you will see from end to end how it is really working. Okay, now when it comes to second set of the strategy, right? We are talking about resilience, we are talking about security. At the end of the day, the organization's success depends on the IT audit. So if you look at the IT audit story, every organization comes out with its failures in multiple areas, whether it is a user ID related management or patch management or whatever, right? All these things have to work according to the processes set on time. So only then the IT audit success can be achieved, right? Third point is, now all these solutions must be viewed through a single pane of glass to the CIOs or CFOs or CISOs of the organization. They should be able to see single pane of glass. What is my system currency of the organization? Why there are so many vulnerabilities? What are these issues? Whether these can be remediated on time or not? Why is it not happening? So if these questions arise and if the tools provide those single pane view, definitely the organization's security process can be improved. Apart from deploying multiple tools in a cloud or non-cloud environment, it is absolutely fine. But if these 4 processes and its framework work according to the design, then the cybersecurity success will come for any enterprise.
Thank you, Natarajan. So basically, you mentioned that any cybersecurity strategy should comprise of 3 elements: people, process, and tools. Correct. And from a people perspective, it's more collaboration. Yes. And from a process perspective, it is more, integration of your ITSM and all these processes, apart from cybersecurity processes and your risk management processes. And then from a tool perspective, what you mentioned is just deploying the tools is not enough. You need to have a single pane of glass, something like a command center, which will give that kind of observability to the senior management to ensure that you have not been hacked or there's no vulnerability in your whole ecosystem. Great points, Natarajan. Santanu, one thing is, if you look at digital transformation, typically you do digital transformation for improving your customer experience or your operational experience or getting into new business models. So these are the three elements. Looking at customer-centric transformation, what are the key elements in designing a customer-centric digital transformation?
It's a very good point, right? Anything, let's say we are going for a digital transformation, right? What is an objective? Is I reach to more and more customers, right? But reaching is just one of the point. The second point is how do I excite him to come to my platform and start buying it? Ideally, what we do, or ideally it should be done, is we should first understand the aspect of the user persona, right? The various personas, the various kinds of people, the buyer behavior, the buying patterns, expectations of growth. You might have a tier 1 city, the buying pattern would be different. Tier 2 buy button will be different. Tier 3 little different, right? How they want to see. The tier 3, the cost might be a bigger factor, where tier 1 functionality and the looks might be a bigger factor. So looking at that aspect is where you first make out a list of the expectations from an end user, the end user experience aspect of it. That should be signed off with the business objectives. I need to understand what's my business plan, business vision, business objectives. And you need to sum it up, and then we start reverse engineering into what it needs from my side to design an IT system or design an ecosystem with people, process and technology, whatever we talk about, to meet those objectives. And that's where I believe is some of those mantras of success of digital strategy, because you are actually emulating the buyer and then thinking what you need to do. And you have seen other customers or other enterprise, what they do typically is they start building the IT ecosystem, the planning, the software, the whole analytics, the whole support mechanism. And who is going to buy? The personas is this last thing that they would have thought for. It might work, but most of the time we have seen people end up spending more in changing, a lot of changes to happen to meet that objectives.
So great points, Santanu. So basically what you mentioned is, take an outside in view rather than an inside out view. So basically if you look at the...
Both are needed.
If you look at the initial set of banking applications, they were more what a teller would do, not an end consumer would do, right? And they actually realized that these mobile apps are not reducing the number of customers coming to their banks, right? So that's when they realized that they have actually looked at how the tellers work and how they handle their cash transactions rather than how a customer would want to do. That's where that customer journey, customer personas, segmentation of your customers, all that comes into picture. And once you start from there and you marry your business objectives, that is when a customer-centric transformation, actually succeeds. Otherwise, you can do quite a lot of things, but it will not be adopted.
Correct. And if you see that market, also the job market for that, right? Because of the massive digital transformation, the UI UX guys are very much in demand today.
Experience make a lot of difference.
It makes a lot of difference, right? And in Hindi we say, "Jo dikhta hai, wo bikhta hai," right? So you need to make that happen.
Yeah. Great point, Santanu. So Ashok, what are your thoughts on customer-centric transformation?
Yeah, that. Okay, let me start with a reference to Dosh and Dosh's research. So as per that was a pretty recent research, and as per that, what they have found is all those companies that were pretty customer-centric were about 60% profitable than those who weren't. So which gives you the emphasis is why the organization needs to be pretty customer-centric. Now, how do I achieve that? I need a customer base that is pretty supportive. It forms a core of my business, and they are with me. They give me the ideas. What next? What to do? How do I, satisfy their requirements, or what can I do better? The journey there would actually start from getting the input from the customer at a 360 degrees, where what they've said, they have not said. You kind of get the business intelligence. You analyze that from the various interactions that you have, and more so, entire employees, the entire structure in the company, they become more customer centric. So and everyone actually contributes to the fact that what is that the customers are looking at. So what makes say an X happy may not make Y happy, and what probably would make him happy today may not it may not make him that happy tomorrow. So it's a constant evolution. So how do I know what to do? So this is the phase where I remember I get reminded of Steve Jobs' quote. I'm sorry at verbatims. I kind of miss out on the verbatims. So what he said, the first line was, get close to the customer, get even more closer to the customer. And that was okay, that's all what we do. But the second line which he said for the next was, you need to tell him, you get so close that you tell him what he needs before he realizes it. So that's the gist of it. It may be slightly different in words, but that's the gist of what Steve said. So that's kind of, going in depth into what the customer requires. And I'm building a very, very strong core on which I can, grow further. So I would like to give an example here of a manufacturing company that we were we were a part of it for their telecom requirements. So they were a hugely customer focused, customer centric. They had a lovely customer base, but there was some small hitches. They had about 100 acres of manufacturing plant where they had various divisions located. Each of those guys were like, for example, if I take just to give you the idea about it, you take the supply chain guys. They used to sit there. They cannot use their more personal numbers to outcall these suppliers or anyone. So these guys, and they were required to travel across. So which was when the rest, everything was in place. This was one small factor which was causing a little dissatisfaction because there were some delays that got introduced, ultimately affecting the company's overall performance. So when we were called, so we could, we shifted them onto a cloud-based solution again. This was again much before pre-COVID times. So we shifted them onto the cloud. This freed them up from their desk space, so they were able to be in sync with the entire plant. They were able to take the supplier's code. They were in sync with the company's policies. So this helped avoid all those glitches what was happening before. And there was a proper integration coordination, and we were also supplying the business analytics on this. With that, and with their what they had from the customer analytics, they were able to create a lovely customer base which was extremely supportive, and they are doing extremely good. Now their cost of acquisition of new customer base has come down so low that it is a model that we all should follow. Rather, I would request you to look at it. So that's what I wanted to share. The importance of being a customer centric. You get a very loyal customer base who brings in additional customers to us.
Thank you, Ashok. I think whatever you told complemented what Santanu was talking about. Basically, what you mentioned is the context is very important. Then a single view of customer and customer 360, basically capturing all the transactions what a customer might want to do. That is very important. And to top it all, you need customer analytics to actually drive that customer journey. So that's basically the key elements of transformation from a customer-centric perspective. Excuse me. Coming back to you, Naresh, we talked about Agile and basically the data-driven decision making as the key cultural challenges, what you need from an adoption perspective or what you need from a resilient agile enterprise perspective. So how do you drive that agile adoption, and how do you drive that data-driven decision making adoption?
Yeah, so I would just go back to where we started, right? So I think clearly there are three elements that you are essentially trying to drive through this transformation. So one, are you able to drive intuitive decision making for your stakeholders? This could be within, outside, right? Customers, employees, etc. Second, how efficient are your value chains? And depending on the industry context, what your value chains entail would vary, but your value chains need to be very efficient. And the third element is, are you building perceptive experiences for your customers, for your employees, right? And partners as well. And I think that's when it actually boils down to looking at how well are your employee processes, right? If somebody in your employee base has to hop through 100 steps and perhaps several dozen applications to actually determine whether an order can be expedited or not, etc., right? I think that's not going to lead you anywhere on your transformation journey. So that's perhaps the first thing that you need to fix. Or if your sales teams spend an unusually high amount of time just to get basic customer insights, right? Which means your data strategy has gone completely haywire. So you are going to look at your internal processes first. You are going to bring in agility there, correct? So process busting, looking at lean, right, etc., to drive better processes internally. Second, I think with that as a base, then you are going to look at the technology. I think we spoke about cloud, AI, etc., automation. So these are going to help you to sort of drive the next level of transformation on top of more sound and efficient processes. And that's where I would sort of put the agile lens. And then you can do agile, 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝑠, SRE, all of the nice things. Automation, right, next. You can eliminate a whole lot of time that your customers are perhaps putting in waiting, right? And this could be both customers and your employees. And I think that's the other lens that you will have to look at, right? Where is an aspect of elimination that can actually come in, and automation that can come in a bigger way. And I think that's the way to perhaps look at technology as an enabler once you have set the process game right. And in fact, at Infosys, what we really did was drove a whole lot of process busting exercises, because left to itself, any process over a period of time starts to become inefficient. It doesn't start that way, but I think, with time, that's what happens invariably. So set of process busting exercises, looking at stakeholders and what value it drives. And I think one of the important things that worked very well for us was we were not depending on opinions and asking people whether the process is good or not, but actually all of this was coming from system telemetry. How many times a claim gets rerouted internally, right? Huge frustration for employees that, my claim is taking so many more days. Perhaps it could be done in a few minutes. How many hops, right? You could go ask people and there'll be opinions, but the system knows, right? Because your systems have telemetry. The system knows that, it is stuck with so-and-so place for so many days. It's getting rerouted because of this reason. Can you revisit your thresholds, approval limits, and so on? 80-90% of your stuff can get done with just basic telemetry and data and insights that can start to bubble up. So those kinds of things, right? So agility, not just look at, doing agile, but look at aspect of being agile in terms of your basic processes, driving automation, using technology in the right way on top of sound process. I think that's the way I would put it.
Thank you, Naresh. Basically, what you mentioned is that data capture is a key element if you want to drive a data-driven organization, if you want to actually implement a data-driven organization. The second thing what you mentioned is the transparency. So basically, you need to make this captured data available to all your stakeholders, be it your partners or your own employees or your customers. Then the third aspect what you mentioned is the process efficiency. So essentially, with this data, you try to actually see, how to optimize the process. So all this basically boils down to in God we trust, for the rest we have data, right? So now, Praveen, coming back to you, right? What are the process challenges you faced, when you've tried to implement a data-driven organization or an agile organization?
The first challenge is the change management. So how do I drive the change? Second is culture. Because I'm used to something, how do I change that? So now cultural change, given my legacy, and then once you are on a transformation journey, adoption. How do I improve the adoption? And once the adoption is again increasing, the more like as the adoption goes up, the security risks around that also will increase. How do I protect my assets, right? So now assets are not just the infrastructure that you have. So it's more the IP that you have. Somebody, like what happens if somebody takes it and then puts it into GitHub, for example, right? So now how fast I can detect that and then recover, right? So now these kind of like to add to all these things, you have to be agile. So now if your thinking is in the straight line, I don't think it can help leverage the digital transformation that we are looking at. So unless you are agile, so agility has to be the mindset. So this is what I would like to.
Yeah, thank you, Praveen. So whatever you talked about complements what Naresh was talking about. So basically, one is you're saying that resistance to change has to be overcome. The second thing what you were talking about is mindset change. So these coupled with the protection strategy is what is going to drive your agile transformation and your data-driven decision-making transformation. Thank you for this. Now maybe we'll go on a kind of rapid fire one question, the same question for everybody. So we'll start again with you, Praveen. So basically, what should be the tech priorities for an agile and resilient enterprise?
Okay, so now don't go behind the technology. I think first decide what you want, and then the technology can address this thing. So now start with what you want, and then how you want to go there. Technology will be the enabler.
Thank you, Praveen. Natarajan?
Be a secured organization first, enforce discipline in the organization, and the technologies will provide all the support. Cloudification is a new terminology, but I think a hybrid environment is the best suited environment for any large enterprise. So that's what I would largely say.
Thank you, Natarajan. Santanu?
Sure. I think so you're focusing on being a resilient enterprise. I would suggest to be more reliable, which is be a combination of resilience and availability. If your systems are not available, there's nothing called digital there. If systems are not resilient enough, then you don't have a very stable system to give a very predictable outcome every time. So I believe we should focus more on reliability.
Thank you, Shantanu. So what you actually mentioned is the non-functional aspects of digital transformation. Thank you. Ashok?
Thanks. I would actually put it this way. Yeah, you're right when you say that you'll have to look into all those transformation. But yeah, I mean, let's bank on the previous experience, what we've seen. We've overcome all those challenges. I mean, these challenges, what we thought were there earlier are no more there. So let's, I mean, the companies are now, just taking the plunge into it, and then employees per se are supportive. They are adopting. They are pretty open to, the kind of utilization or the kind of the way they are adopting to that new technology is awesome. So that's the transformation that needs to happen, and at a much larger scale if we are to be on business as usual, even if in future if such pandemics or some such scenarios, God forbid, it happens.
Yeah, thank you. It just reminds me of that proverb, what brought you here will not take you there. Yeah, over to you, Naresh.
Yeah. So if I were to break it up, right? So sort of look at process as code, right? Not documents and the legacy way of looking at processes, right? I think that's one technology intervention that if anybody could do, right? I think that should be the first way to start. Second, cloud, but I think I would put a layer of what we in Infosys call as polycloud, which is, sort of hyperscaler agnostic, so that, you are not at the mercy of anybody, and Santanu and team will have many examples of what can go wrong with that strategy, right? So with a polycloud layer, which actually gives you the ability to shift, move, right, depending on your context and scenarios and the changing needs that the organization is going to have, right, in the future. Third, sort of, lighting up your value chain in a way that you have AI, ML, whatever else, right, all the good stuff that can help you to get better hold of data, so that your decision making becomes rapid and you can actually do it at the speed of thought. And the fourth thing is really driving your infrastructure in a way that brings in a whole lot of flexibility, where you can actually innovate at speed. I think that's the way I would look at technology being an enabler for driving those three key elements, which is your ability to do decisions much rapidly, your ability to create great experiences, digital experiences, of course, today for your customers and your employees as well, and internally being able to make sure that your value chains are always efficient, and that is visible through data and insights, and not because of some guy saying something or some record on paper, right?
Thank you, Naresh. So basically, we trust in God, and for everything else there is data. Thank you, panel members, for the very insightful discussion. So basically, what we covered is, we started from the strategy, then we went to the framework, then we went to the technology, then we went to the business process changes, and then when we went to the mindset and the people transformation challenges. Thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone for such an insightful and discussion.